Creatine capsules versus the powdered form. So now I have both from the same company, and I started out with creatine with 1 gram, and then eventually I upped it to 2.5 and then to 5 gram. So initially I got the powdered form from bulk powders. Why? Because the powdered form is usually cheaper, since there is less effort for making these capsules. But then I figured, what if for traveling, but also just for ingesting them at home, for example, it would be significantly easier to just take the creatine. For example, I often forgot to take creatine on the whole day before I then trained, and if I trained with creatine or loaded with creatine, I often noticed a somewhat, at least noticeable difference. Of course, this could also be, at least to some part, placebo. But I also took them to the library, for example. I placed them in a small box in my gym bag, and therefore I was able to take them in a better dose compared to the spoon I had before, where it often was like not entirely clear how much I actually did take and how much I didn't take. So maybe it was a gram more, maybe it was a gram less. For price reference, this here was 420 of 1.25 gram capsules, and this was 588 grams of creatine, and this cost 34 euros. And then this here from the same company in unpowdered, so this here is in capsule form, this here is in powdered form, this cost 38 euros. And there's also a scoop in there, if we manage to get the scoop out there, which might be, so this is a 3.4 gram creatine scoop. And with the powdered form, I found it the most useful to just put it in a glass of water and then drink it. So since I didn't take that much creatine today, so I'm currently aiming at in between 7.5 to 10 grams of creatine, I will now take 3.41 gram of creatine and then just dissolve it in water. So I just take a glass of water and then I usually have it around a little bit. I mean, the 3.4 grams is now a little bit much. Why is it 3.41? Because probably many people take maybe 10 grams, and so they can just take 3 scoops, because 10 divided by 3 is about 3.3 grams. And it also didn't stop in between. I wanted to stop the video. Now, initially I wanted to get the capsules again, but what I realized is that thing that I already told you, is that this sells for 33 euros, whereas, and is only 588 grams, and this is 1 kilogram, and it sells for 38 euros. So the price difference is there, I would say. So what I figured is that I now, for the home usage, will take probably 10 grams in a glass every single day, maybe 3 times, or maybe just during the day, because I experimented a little bit with taking the capsules, and then after I take the capsules I usually have, I don't know, a 40-minute somewhat focused phase, but then the phase often goes away. But if I drink it continuously, I figured that it might be a more of a continuous focusing session, at least mentally. For physical performance, it seems to be the case that you can kind of not buffer, but you can make your creatine stores full, and if they are satiated, then as long as you keep the creatine intake up to a level where it still keeps the creatine stores high, which could be different for different people. But if you assume the 5 grams is for the average weight, and the average weight worldwide is 62 kilograms only, because of some countries having a significantly lower weight, whereas I think in the US the average weight is, I think, around 80 kilograms. And you take this into account, and with the rule of 3 basically scale the creatine up, then obviously with 80 kilograms you want to take a little bit more of creatine. Huberman mentioned in his podcast on creatine, or not on his podcast on creatine, but in his latest summary episode on all of the performance things he implemented from the Andy Galpin series he did on his podcast. He also mentioned that you might want to take more creatine if you are heavier. Now, of course, it could be the case that the 5 grams of creatine as the base reference are made or meant for the average population, maybe in Western countries, which would have a higher average weight. But if we just take the worldwide weight average, then it would be 62 kilograms, and then this would result in me currently being at, I don't know, 78 kilograms, around this, at a higher creatine intake. But The 5 grams are also only meant for kind of the physical performance. The mental performance would be a little bit different, so there could be a higher cap that is actually the mental performance then. So what I'm trying to aim at is currently anywhere from 7, 8 to 10 grams of creatine. Maybe I take a little bit more and see if there is an additional benefit, or if I notice an additional benefit. Even if the additional benefit might just be placebo, there is also the argument that if it is placebo, you might as well use the placebo effect. So I am not able to create a placebo without anything, so I might as well take creatine and then have the placebo effect, and then, well, basically perform better without doing much of anything, even if the creatine, the additional creatine, at least the marginal increase of creatine I would add, doesn't have an additional marginal benefit. In total, as a strategy though, I think it makes sense to have these in my travel bag, and so I will probably purchase these two. I also saw an offer from Bulk Powders for 500 grams of creatine, also on Amazon, and this sold for 31 euros. And this, on the other hand, is 38 euros, and it's 1 kilogram, so twice the amount. So basically, the one from Bulk Powder sold almost as expensive as the capsuled one from this brand here I found.